Hello and welcome to The Print. I am Maushami Dasgupta, and today we have a very eminent guest to talk to us about a host of issues, including the National Cooperative Policy, which was unveiled by Union Home Minister last week. Mr. Prabhu, uh, welcome to The Print, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Prabhu is a six-time MP and he has been a former union minister and has handled close to 10 portfolios, including crucial ones like railways, aviation, commerce, among others. Sir, without wasting any more time, let's delve into the subject right away. I'll come to the cooperative sector and about the cooperative policy in a bit, but let's start the discussion with the trade talks. You have been a commerce minister earlier, and you had handled Indo-US trade talks earlier also. So I just wanted to ask you if you have got a chance to look at the Indo-UK FTA that was signed recently. What do you think of it? And also on the bilateral negotiations that India is currently having with US and which will be finalized shortly. What do you think of it?
Yeah. Firstly, thank you very much for this opportunity and thank you to talking to you, old friend. So one is, actually these negotiations for trade deals take long time. I recall when there was a Trump 1 administration, we were talking to them on trade deal. I was a Minister of Commerce. We had a number of meetings. The United States Trade Representative, that was Mr. Lighthizer. Then we had discussion with the White House and many times, many rounds. And I'd met all the stakeholders on the US side as well as from the Indian side to ensure that we understand their concerns as well as when we sign something, we take on board our own people's interest. So we have done that. UK again, we started long time back. That time at a very early stage because UK was still coming out of the EU at that particular time. And therefore, we have a very preliminary discussion. But with US, we had done quite a bit of it. Then there was a change in administration in the US. The Biden administration came in. And now, again, the Trump 2 has come in. So one on the UK trade deal, I think we should always be very conscious about one thing is that we have to protect our agriculture and allied sectors like dairying and others. For a reason, it's not an economic issue. It's a livelihood issue for us. So this is one part we have to always keep in mind, which we have always done, and I'm sure Prime Minister Modi will never compromise on that. And my dear friend Piyush Goyal, who is handling these negotiations from the Indian side. Secondly, we should also be trying to open up services for India abroad. Like, for example, like what you have done now in case of UK. See, we are very good in accounting. We are very good in legal services. We are very good in other allied services. So I think those services also should be open. We should be allowed to recognize each other's reciprocally the qualification. Like there are chartered accountants in India. I'm a chartered accountant. Let me disclose my interest. So we have a UK chartered accountant. There are many lawyers, and we have adopted a legal system, at least thanks to Prime Minister Modi and Amit Shah ji. We have changed the legal, at least particularly the criminal code. But otherwise, we follow that system a bit. So why not have a reciprocity in terms of practicing, etc. But I welcome the deal with the UK, which opens up a new markets for us. I'm sure UK is, though not a very fast-growing economy, still a very large economy. And we have historical relations with them. So I think it will be useful.
On the India-US bilateral talks that are in a very crucial stage right now, sir. So one of the most contentious issues that our negotiators are dealing with is related to tariff on agriculture and dairy products, and especially because US has been pushing to allow imports of GM crops like soybean meal. So why are we against GM crops? What is this ideological hang up against GM crops?
See, this is not a ideology or it is not something to do with any preconceived notions. We are open on everything because we also have technology, but we are saying, and which is rightly so, and I thank Prime Minister Modi for ensuring that we have drawn those red lines in terms of ensuring that our farmers' interest is protected. I think there is nothing wrong. All countries in the world try to do that, including the US. US also subsidizes their farmers in a big way.
Hmm.
So therefore, I think this is something which we are trying to do. It's not a technology issue alone, though it is a technology as well, but of a different kind. So we in India, we also have conducted trials on GM crops, on not necessarily for this, but say for cotton and other things. So I think we will be, I am sure we will try to move forward on any trade deal with any country in the world, only and only when our own national interest and particularly the interest of the most vulnerable sections of a society are properly protected.
Right, sir. Sir, you headed this 48-member steering committee which drafted the National Cooperative Policy, which was unveiled last week. In fact, you have been associated with the cooperative sector for a long time, and you were one of the youngest chairmen of Saraswat Bank, an urban cooperative, the largest urban cooperative bank in India. So, why was a need felt to replace the 2002 cooperative policy? One, and how does it help? How does the new cooperative policy help? But before that, if you can just take our viewers briefly and tell them about the cooperative sector, very briefly, if you can take them through what the cooperative sector is all about.
Yeah. See, basically, cooperative sector is pretty old, more than a century old. It started with agriculture and rightly so. Incidentally, I was just speaking and I'll just tell you something very interesting.
Yes.
Cooperative is in our ethos. If you go to Indus civilization, or you go back to when we were the largest, at least second largest economy of the world, when we are more than 30% of the global GDP. Where was it coming from? It was coming from agriculture, from artisans. So therefore, this has been the foundation of India's economic history or has been part of a cultural ethos that we always have believed in ensuring that we work on cooperative principles. May not be cooperative law was not there centuries ago, but so cooperative has been part of our cultural as well as economic processes. One. Secondly, these cooperatives have touched almost more than 400 million people, directly, indirectly. In some states, they are doing well, particularly the erstwhile Bombay presidency, which then was divided into Maharashtra, Karnataka, part of Tamil Nadu. They've been pretty strong. Whereas in some other states, like particularly in the north and in the east, they've not been as strong as they should be. So therefore, there was a need to ensure that cooperatives has the ability to actually bring people into it and also increase economic outputs. We always calculate normally go by GDP, which is a macro level issue.
Mm.
If you actually go to the micro level, if the per capita incomes have to rise along with the GDP rise, and how do you do that? I had started a program when I was a commerce industry minister, district-led growth. I will not go into that today, but this was a program we launched with a precise reason. How do you take people on board first? Their income rise automatically that will get reflected into the macro level statistics of GDP increasing. Cooperatives have that ability. It is proven. Go to Amul. You will be surprised that Amul is a very big brand. But who supplies milk to Amul? All the women farmers, most of them, if not all. And those women farmers, what is their average ownership of cattle? Three, four, five. So just imagine the beauty of it. Amul, a big brand which actually captures the imagination of people, or the most sought after brand in any kitchen or any dining table of the urban area, or even in the world now, in some parts. In that brand is actually benefiting the women at a grassroots. So that's the beauty of cooperative. You have a marketing on one side which actually aggressively promotes this brand. At the same time, back-ended, the benefits go to the poor farmers. So this is the beauty of cooperative. So therefore, it's true for sugar factory as well. Of
Mm.
course, I know there are some sugar factories and some cooperatives. Many of them are not as well run as they should be. There are many shortcomings. There are frauds, I agree with all that. In fact, the other day when I was our Honorable Home Minister was launching the policy, I said, this Niti, cooperative Niti, will do two things. वो अनीति को भी दूर करेगी और नीति को भी लाएगी. So it's like a panchakarma, which will actually detoxify the body, cooperative body, at the same time rejuvenate the body. So that's what is the principle of this policy.
And why was a need felt, sir, to replace the old policy, the 2002 policy? It had become dated.
See, we have traveled a long distance. 2002, Atal Bihari Vajpayee was the Prime Minister. I was in the same cabinet when we introduced this policy. Since then, lot of, as you say, proverbially, water has flown under the Ganges. Big one. But secondly, most important, from 2002 till today, private sector also has grown substantially. World has changed. Technology, which is now all pervasive, was not there in 2002 as much as it is there today.
Right.
So how do you make our cooperatives future ready? How do you make our cooperatives more vibrant entities? How do you make them ready to face competition from the private sector? How do you make them get into new areas? You'll be surprised. And this is what I must compliment the Prime Minister and Mr. Amit Shah for simple reason, because there are many aspects of this policy which are already implemented, like there are primary agriculture credit society, PACs, as they are popularly called. There are fewer than 100,000, 1 lakh. But now there will be PACs in each and every village of India. They will act as socio-economic change agents. They will be able to carry out multiple activities. Like, for example, some of them will have petrol pump, they will have gas agencies. So they will have multiple income streams. And who will benefit from it? The benefit will go to the farmer, to the villager in that society, who is a member of PACs. So this is a very revolutionary idea. At the same time, there are many others which will actually strengthen the cooperative. But point is, this is the policy which even at a village level ties to, and they are all PACs are getting computerized. The existing ones are almost computerized. Others are getting computerized. Just imagine the power of technology that is going into the village, which links that village with the global books. Now, these PACs, I'll just give an example. With this computerization, now the cropping pattern in that village, you can now do the weather forecasting in your own village to the PACs. You not do forecasting, but you can capture the forecasting which is done by the whatever agency, IMD or any other, even private agents are doing it. Or secondly, this can actually give the prices of products, produce at a global market. So you can actually decide whether to store or to sell. Every village, there's a plan to create a warehousing for the farmer. So if you are feeling that price is not good, thanks to technology, thanks to computerization, you can store it in a village. So you don't have to do a distress sell. So multiple advantages. So 2002 to 2025, we have traveled a long distance. This has been a revolutionary 2 decades, not just for India, but for globally, wherein new changes have happened on a magnitude that was unimaginable even few years ago.
But sir, I have one question. So you were talking of, how there has been technological advancements. So in this day and age, how relevant is the cooperative sector?
See, cooperatives is not something fallen from nowhere. It is actually rooted and grounded into the ethos, as I was mentioning. And then we are not just talking about technology alone. See, there are many important things we are doing. We are strengthening the foundation. That's one of the main pillars.
That's the highlight of the new policy.
Sorry?
That's the highlight of the new policy.
New policy we are doing, strengthening the foundation, promoting vibrancy, making cooperative future ready, which I just mentioned, achieving inclusivity and deepening reach. So different sector, different area, increasing membership. We want to reach out to another 400-500 million people who are still not today part of the cooperatives. We want to, so emerging sectors, like for example, we are even talking about climate proofing areas like that. We are also talking about making sure that ESG, which now only corporates talk about. Why not we make our own cooperatives doing that? We are trying to reach out to the young generation. And there are 16 objectives into this. It's not just foundation, which are actually in 6 pillars: legal reforms and digitalization, which I mentioned. Financial accessibility and tax parity. Cooperatives are always suffering, had a disadvantage with tax. Already the ministry has taken those initiatives and they are trying to bring it at par with corporate sector. Market access and corporate export promotion. Already a new body has been set up. So we can promote. First, there is another part of that. We'll brand COP. You go to some country, they say COP brand, COP, COOP. We like to brand individual entity, individual sectors, but cooperative as a sector. We also like to do that. So market access, export promotion will happen. We'll also have inclusivity and member empowerment. Member is the heart of a corp. Today we talk about cooperative which can be hijacked by a political party or a very strong leader at a local level. We don't want that to happen. We want to make sure that cooperatives are for members and for their benefit alone. So leader cannot use it as a proprietary concern. So to make sure that we have made some changes into this policy, we also talk about skilling and also ensuring there is a cooperative university which is set up. We are thinking of organizing an event soon, which is not a part of policy but implementation of policy. Incidentally, for implementation of these policies, there are huge number of this. The Corporation Minister, Mr. Amit Shah, will chair the meeting to ensure that it is implemented. There is another executive committee which is chaired by secretary cooperatives. So make sure that there is institutional arrangement in place so it doesn't remain just a very utopian ideas mentioned in the policy, but will get implemented through a very structured mechanism. And as you know, the stature of Mr. Amit Shah is a very senior leader of the country. So when he puts his play, and he's also home minister. So this is a subject which is actually state subject. We are also appealing to all the states to make their policy. So unless states are on board, unless union government's entire weight is put behind implementation, it will not happen. So there is a structured arrangement which has been made into this, which will ensure that it will happen.
So, for the first time, this cooperative, the National Cooperative Policy 2025, also talks about allowing the cooperatives to enter new and emerging sectors like tourism, like taxi service, like insurance. So, how will it work?
Already work is going on. Taxi service should be launched very soon.
But
Tourism,
how does the system work? As in, how will.
just imagine, see, if you can have a private, whether it's Uber or Ola or somebody pulling taxis and doing it together, why not we bring the taxi drivers, the car owners to come and pull their resources and run it? They'll be in Delhi. In fact, if you look at it, you are in Delhi. I lived in Delhi for 26 years. If you go to a taxi stand, now of course that has become a little bit irrelevant because of this new technology coming in. There was one person who was managing pool of taxis, right? So if you do it like this, the share of profit that goes into this will be done. Tourism. Just imagine, tourism is actually an activity which requires cooperation because there are so many stakeholders on site, off site. Somebody is supplying, say, provisions like chicken or fish or fruits or vegetables. So that is for farmers. So just imagine we link this tourism with the farmers' cooperative outside, that's off site. And on site, there are people who can run it. In fact, I've seen one, and that's in Gujarat, incidentally, on the border of India and Pakistan. There is a panchayat, which when Prime Minister Modi was the chief minister, he had given it that panchayat a resort, which are running into laws by the state government to a panchayat, which is running in profit. And I forget the name of the person who is a very prominent Muslim leader. He said proudly, this is not owned by private sector, it's owned by my own villagers. Just imagine we do that for a cooperatives on a institutionalized manner. So new areas, it's not again that there is a well thought of idea. We deliberated on it for quite some time. We have made all the arrangements or the roadmap so that it is no longer just an idea, not a concept, but a reality soon.
Sir, in recent times, urban cooperative banks, especially, have been mired in financial irregularities. These banks account for a bulk of fines by RBI, and a significant share of these are, for loans granted to related parties, to directors. So, I mean, how do you clean up the system? I mean, there was a cooperative bank scam in Maharashtra, in Gujarat there have been instances. So how does one address that? And does a national cooperative policy have rules regulation to cleanse up the system?
Yes, we have already made this is a governance issue. You are absolutely right, as well as the regulatory oversight issue, which the RBI obviously has to address. But in terms of governance, we have made these processes. But I'll tell you something, Mushumi, this is very important.
Yes, sir.
You know, whatever best policy you make ultimately depends upon the person who actually implements it. So the leadership in corporate is also important. That's why we are focusing on leadership training. We are trying to bring values into this. The cooperatives are sanskar oriented.
Mm.
You actually must believe in cooperatives. If you're entering cooperative to make personal benefit, it will never work. So these policies actually trying to, in a way, try to codify some sort of a samskars and try to put that into place. But I'll come to this issue. Basically, I'll tell you. You mentioned I was chairman of the largest cooperative bank. I never took 1 rupee sitting fee. I never used any benefit of that. I never borrowed from the bank, nor any of my relatives or even friends. I allowed them to borrow. And that time I was practicing chartered accountant. So I made a rule that none of my clients will be the customers of the bank, and none of the customers of the bank I will ever accept them as my client in my chartered account practice. So these are the things we must have our own value system to be put in place for it to succeed. But you're right, there are a lot of instances in which it has been misused. That's why I said aniti. So I said नीति को अनीति भी साथ में दूर करने की कोशिश करनी चाहिए. So that's what hopefully we will do.
Yeah,
But
because
as you know, as you mentioned, I've handled 10 different portfolios. So as seen in the government as well, that ultimately government is the agent of a society. What is
Mhm.
the government? People elected. People decide this is the best possible combination that should rule us for the next 5 years. But ultimately, where these people who are elected come from the same society. So the pool from where we draw these people are from the same people. Same in the case of cooperatives. Cooperatives membership, leadership comes from the same society. So I
Mm.
think we have to work on changing. It is one lead to another. Suppose we run a good cooperative like Amul, it will influence others to follow. There's
Mm-hmm.
one bad egg, and that will spoil the whole thing. So we have to make sure that we increase critical mass of good entities. Hopefully, that will ensure that others will be discouraged. In addition to legal punitive action that is already mentioned in the policy. Also, we are strengthening the oversight mechanism, regulatory mechanism, which again will ensure that at least early warning system. The other advantage, Moshimi, going to be now because we have technology. Early warning can happen sooner because it is all computerized, so you can actually it will flag off. Red flags will come in sooner. So I
Mm-hmm.
hope it should work. But I fully agree that finally it's both people and a system. Both have to change at the same time. People can change the system can spoil the people. So we have to make sure that we keep the right balance.
Yeah.
See, Moshimi, please go by the statistics provided by Reserve Bank of India and see the magnitude of frauds in terms of money and number of frauds, and then compare whether the non-cooperative banks have more frauds or the cooperative banks have more. You can look into that.
Yeah.
So I'm not justifying frauds of any kind, but I'm just saying to be putting into perspective, it is not that you can blame only the cooperative banks for that. What they are doing is wrong. They have to be harshly punished. They should be severely get some penal action, but that's perfectly fine. But we have to also put into perspective.
Other questions are related to the cooperative sector, which I mean always comes into the debate is this charges of political interference in the running of cooperatives. It is said that political leaders wield power through these cooperative societies. So what do you have to say to that, especially in states like Maharashtra, in Gujarat? We have seen instances. So what do you have to say to that, and how do you see it?
See, actually, it's a very fine balance because ultimately what happens is politicians are born out of electoral process. Cooperatives, and we want cooperatives to be democratic, so they must be elected. Who is the electoral college for both? Same people, right? So when you have politicians who get elected to MPs, MLAs, or even Jilla Parishads, are the same people who elect them are the people also the member of the cooperative. So some overlap is inevitable because both are democratic institutions. But at the same time, we cannot depoliticize in a way by saying that politicians are debarred from coming into politics,
Mhm.
because that will never work, because it's a democratic process. At the same time, we are actually we have worked on that in the policy to how to make sure. That's why I'm saying politicians should not hijack. Members should be the heart of it. So, in fact, we have mentioned also it may not be the complete body of the policy, because we cannot have 2,000 pages policy, but the deliberations that went in, that even we should record the annual general meeting, we should live telecast it, we should make sure so there is not hijack. If you give members the right to choose, then we have to go by their own wisdom. But politicization of cooperative is one of the challenges. I fully agree with you. And depoliticization is a process which can happen through a time frame, but also to a legislative framework as well as policy intervention.
So, how long did it take the steering committee to come up with the final draft, the final national cooperative policy that we're
See,
seeing?
I personally went to almost all the states. We had probably several hundred suggestions which we received directly, indirectly in a sense through online process or something. We had regional workshops. So we took long time to do that. And after that, of course, there are the elections, so some time lag went in between, because we didn't want to announce a policy at election time, because a friend like you would say you are trying to politicize it by announcing it on the eve of election. So we had to avoid the time frames, and there were too many elections happening at the same time. So some time it took. But I will tell you something. Today, each and every state government was consulted. Each and every stakeholder was consulted. There are several sectors and a national federation of those sectors. Each of the federation I personally talked to them. We had number of seminars, workshops that took place. So it went to a very rigorous, long participative process. So I think one cannot say today, and I don't think anybody has said that we are not consulted. In fact, I'll tell you a very interesting anecdote. You mentioned many in policy. I met the Electricity Act way back 20 years ago, more
Yeah,
than
when you
20
were
years.
the power minister, yes.
So, power minister. So I'll tell you something. And I'm not mentioning the name only because it's not right. I used to consult all trade union leaders, all state governments, all farmers organizations. So one trade union leader, very senior one. So after consulting many times, he said, I have one more issue. I said, okay, please tell me. We'll accept because we have done many. He said, if you don't call us for one more meeting, I will support the bill now, because you have called us for too many meetings. So then I realized that now it's a time to push it there. So Mr. Ajay Shankar, who then became secretary, DIP was my joint secretary. We put it to the cabinet. Thanks to Mr. Vajpayee, we got it approved by the cabinet. And then I thank all my political parties, colleagues, all political parties who approved that bill in the parliament. But point I'm saying is consultation has never been something which didn't happen in this policy week. This I've done in all my 26 years and many times in the government, always consulted. So people cannot say we're not consulted. Complaints could be too much of consultation. I agree.
So, one last question before I close the interview. So, you were the former railway minister also, and in fact, during your tenure as railway minister, Northeast came into the rail map of India. 900 kilometers of meter gauge was converted into broad gauge. So, how do you look at the state of railways today, and what do you think can be done to make railways more efficient and more efficient?
See, I thank Prime Minister Modi because he gave me opportunity to be the railway minister. I presented two full railway budget, and incidentally the last one as well, because there was no railway budget after that,
Yeah, that got.
which has laid down a complete roadmap. You can download it now. As you speak to me, you can download Railway Budget 2015, Railway Budget 2016. Each and everything that needs to be done has been done. And the second railway budget I presented, I gave a action taken report on my first railway budget. Something goes on for a longer period. As you said, accessibility was one of the issues, including the Northeast, like Barak Valley, which had no railway more or less for a long time. I mean, it was hardly. So we actually connected that from valley to mountain. So we really took it out of that. So, we really worked on that. So it's an ongoing process. I remember when I launched 1018, Prime Minister Modi called it rightly so a very better name called uh, mm, Vande Bharat Express. So, many things that we did. I launched 5 different train products, whether it's a Mahanama Express or whether it was Tejas. or whether it is, I mean, quite a few of them. So point I'm saying is railway has to be progressing better, faster for a reason. For many people. Like I said, cooperative, the vulnerable section. Many people in UP, Bihar, etc. That's the only mode of transportation. It's not preferred mode of transportation. That's the only mode of, by default, that's the only way they can travel. In fact, we must always remember one thing. People travel from UP to Bihar to other places for work. They couldn't afford anything else but railways. So we have to make sure that we make railways better. At the same time, and that's what I mentioned in my railway budget speech, I must attract people like Moshumi into the railways. So I know you will be traveling, but I'm saying the other section of society. So we have to have different products.
Mm-hmm.
One for those who cannot afford so some basic services and good service. At the same time, those who want a better services are willing to pay more, a better product for them. We did both at the same time. So therefore, I think we must work like that. And I think the railway and railway, just imagine, it's not just passengers, my dear. Railways also have for cargo. So this is actually lifeline of India. And
You
in
work
fact,
for
I
with
can
that dedicated freight corridor policy was coming up, sir.
yeah. So I made a multimodal logistic policy when I was the commerce industry minister, primarily focusing on this, bringing together, aligning each of these to ultimately provide, because our logistic costs are pretty high and not as efficient as it should be. And if you do that, it's a really a cost of logistic coming down and efficiency, business will grow, employment will rise. So I think this is what we need.
The railway ministry can take a tip, one or two tips out of this interview to make railways much more efficient than it is now. With that, we come to the end of this interview. Thank you so much, Mr. Prabhu, for joining us.
Thank you very much. And I think if it's not in print, it will be in the video of print. So thank you very much for this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.